Alright, hi everyone. Hope you are doing well. Alright, I hope that your mother tongue exam is going well so far. Okay, today's lecture is going to be very, very quick, okay, because it's on something that you should be already very familiar with. Okay, there will be another lecture this weekend, okay, because your mid-year is coming up next Friday. So we'll try as much as possible to get as many ideas of society and family as possible, right? But of course, not all the questions will be on society and family. So please go and do your own reading, your own research onto the different topics that you're interested in lah. Okay. Now, generation gap. Okay, you should be already familiar with this term, right? But according to Google, it states that it is a difference of attitude between people of different generation, leading. This is the important part, leading to a lack of understanding. What does this mean? Have you ever heard your parents saying stuff like, "Oh, you guys are weak. Y'all don't know how to, deal with challenges. Y'all don't know how to deal with issues. Y'all don't know how to have the value of hard work." Right? This is what we mean by lack of understanding. Right? There is a difference in belief. Okay, at the generational level. Okay, later on we will look at how true this particular argument is. Okay, so these are the generations of the last, I would say the last 2 centuries or less, right? You will see that we don't really talk about the GI generation. GI is basically something referring to the military. Okay, we usually start our discussion more on baby boomers, 1946, people that are still generally alive today, okay, all the way up to currently, which is Gen Alpha. Okay, so very quick overview. You should already know this, so I'm just gonna highlight some key points. Now, baby boomers would probably be some of your grandparents, okay, or even great grandparents for some of you, right? But they are generally seen as people who are able to take risks, right? You must remember they are growing up in a very difficult time, just out of the Second World War, and in this tumultuous period of time, they can still flourish. Okay, their family can still survive. All right, and obviously you are still here, so it means that there is some sort of success over there. Okay, it is at this point in time where the economy in most countries started to get boosted. All right, independence came, development started, and then the economy started to boost. Okay, so they are the first generation to receive high level of income and boosted consumerism all over the world. And their experience largely was shaped by war. Okay, specifically talking about mainly the Cold War and bipolarity during that period. Okay, so one of the most notable of the conflicts was the Vietnam War, okay, which is a part of the Cold War, okay, for those of you that don't take history, okay, and as a result, they came out with a lot of anti-war, anti-government mentality because Vietnam War, for example, in the US was draftable, okay, which means that the government was forcing people to go to Vietnam and fight, right? And so this gave rise to a lot of these common phrases like "make love, not war." Okay, these peace movements and stuff like that. So this is where the anti-war movement really first started out, right? And of course, they do believe in equal rights and equal opportunities. It was also around this time, this generation, where they started to focus a lot on eradicating racism, eradicating sexism, right? So this is really why we start here. This is the generation that started the so-called change that we are seeing in today's world. Yeah, so this is a photo from Vietnam. Okay, these are US troops on the ground. And I chose this photo because I believe the Vietnam War is the most significant development for this particular generation. Young men, 18 years old from all across America, going to a foreign land, fighting a war that shouldn't be fought, right? So that was the narrative at that point in time. And ultimately, the Cold War and war in general really shaped the experiences of the baby boomers. Okay, and that will affect. You realize this is what we call the social environment. Okay, the social environment will affect the personality of these people, and later in life how they parent, and therefore will affect the other generations as well. Gen X. Okay, Gen X would probably be some of your parents. Okay, they were influenced by advent of music tech, okay, or music television, MTV lah, basically. Okay, why? I don't know why this is important, but there is a change in certain things that they consume in terms of media. But generally speaking, they are characterized as a generation who is family oriented, educated, happy. Right? This is the when everybody started to go to school. Right? Everybody was able to go to university. Right? And of course, the emphasis on family unit, right, which already discussed last time, really became prominent in this age, right? And they are becoming more and more liberal, right? In this sense that they are advocating for things like love, tolerance, human rights. Okay, these things that are typically not really focused on in earlier generations. Yeah, and they are typically independent. Okay, and they strive for work-life balance, right? Work-life balance obviously comes from family-oriented, and this idea of pragmatism, which is practicality, and independence comes from what they are shaped by. Okay, so what the shaped by part actually tells you is how it will affect them. Okay, so Gen X was Cold War, end of the Cold War, Watergate, which is when Nixon resigned, energy crisis, and rise in single-parent families. So these are common things that happened at that point. So based on the focus on the family unit and of course the external challenges that pose a threat on the family unit, right, they develop this sense of independence and pragmatism, right, and also they saw how important it is was to spend time with your family. Okay, yeah. So this is the fall of the Berlin Wall, right, which is the most notable historical event, in my opinion, that happened for this generation. And why is that so? Is because this marked the end of the Cold War. This whole period that their parents and I assume a majority of their early childhood was characterized upon. So in America, it would be things like preparing for nuclear war, hiding in bunkers, doing drills in schools, right? So on and so forth. But the fall of the Berlin Wall actually marked slowly the collapse of this bipolarity idea across the world. Okay, and that's why it was significant for this generation. Gen Y, millennials, all right? The generation before all of us, right? Millennials are people born from 1981 to 1995, generally. Okay, one thing to note is that these years are arbitrary. Different people have different definition of what years they actually spend from. Okay, so in this case, I'm using 1981 to 1995. Okay, they are characterized as confident, tolerant, but possess a strong sense of entitlement. This is where the individualism that we discussed earlier in the youth chapter comes up. Okay, these are the people who are looking forward to the future, right? 1981, almost time for the new century, is a time of change. Okay, so they possess this optimism, but they are still facing the daily uncertainties of that particular generation, right? And you might hear this term a lot. Okay, it's called the strawberry generation. Okay, usually it comes from the Eastern languages. So in Chinese, it'll be 草莓族, okay, which is literal translation. Okay, to refer to the fact that this generation is easily bruised and more inclined to alter appearances. Easily bruised means no resilience. Okay, small things. Oh, I don't want to do. Small things. Oh, I hate you. Stuff like that. Easily bruised. More inclined to alter appearance is the focus on oneself, how we look, how we dress, how we represent ourselves. Okay, same thing. It goes back to the idea of individualism. Sheltered upbringing. Like I said, parenting will affect the generational characteristic. So because the parents, which is the Gen X people, right, or even the baby boomers, right, they have gone through the difficult times. So they wouldn't want their children to go through the same difficult time. So they eventually become more sheltered in their parenting. So they'll try everything in their power to prevent their children from going through the same torture, the same difficulties that they personally face in their own upbringing. Okay, and this is where really the advocacy, the idea of youth advocacy comes up. Again, not to say youth advocacy didn't exist before, but this is where it really gained the prominence that it does today. Right? So, righting the wrongs of the past. Millennials are the first generation to really openly criticize in a large scale everything that went wrong with the baby boomers, with the Gen X people, or even before that. Okay, and one reason they could do so is because of digital media, right? This is when digital media starts to gain in technology, in the technological aspect, and also the prominence in terms of popularity. Okay, transnational terrorism, definitely. 2001 9/11 attacks. AIDS pandemic was the first time a major health crisis affected a generation, right? Specifically, why AIDS is so significant here is because people were afraid of AIDS, right? They thought last time that AIDS could spread through human to human contact, so even shaking hands, right? And it eventually shaped how a generation of people, especially affecting the LGBT community, right? How they grew up, okay, in that particular time. And of course, economic crisis like the Asian financial crisis, okay. As a result, they faced a lot of new age problems. In the past, problems were things like not enough food, not enough water, going to war. But for millennials, you realize the problems change. The problems become ultimately a lot more social, a lot more economic focused. Okay, and as a result, it will affect them when they are in their workplace as well. Right, so that's where they come up with this highly tolerant, highly competitive personality. Right, everything also want to fight with other people. Right, and that is also what makes them such great advocates also, right? And that's where this idea of outward appearance comes out again, right? Personal recognition and attention in a world shaped by new age problems. This is a term I phrase myself, new age problems. Okay, the idea of competition, the idea of recognition is very, very important, right? I believe one of the questions on hard work and success, he recognition, this is where it first started, or not first started, this is where it really became emphasized as a generation or in the society at large. And yeah, 9/11, I would say, why? Because 9/11 eventually caused many of the tensions that we know today. In fact, in 2000 to me was one of the most peaceful years ever in human history. Okay, but 2001 marked the start of the new world order. Okay, 2001 brought about 9/11 and later on invasion of Iraq. Okay, invasion of Iraq, invasion of Afghanistan, etc., etc., etc. And then obviously leading to things like Middle East conflict, leading to things like instability in the Middle East region, bipolarity between China, Russia, sorry, bipolarity between China, US, Russia, and then of course the rise of terrorist groups in the Middle East and all around the world. So this is why I think 9/11 was the most significant event so far. For them lah, okay. And now for us, Gen Z. Okay, they are the fastest growing generation ever in the workforce. We are the ones driving technological advances, and we represent the best foresight that we have of future belief, attitude, and expectation of technology. Okay, this generation is technology focused. Okay, this is a technology generation. Okay, we are the ones that kick started the whole age of the internet, which started in 2000. Okay, so we are going to become very soon the leaders of technology. Okay, so be it ethics of technology or the development of technology or things like AI, AR. Okay, all these things, Gen Z will be the one focusing on it very, very soon. Okay, and I believe this generation will be shaped by rapid digitalization, like I said already, economic crisis, more economic crisis to come. Okay, you are graduating into a very, very unstable economy. Cyber warfare, okay, same thing, digital, everything to do with digital hacks, cyber attacks, and COVID 19. Okay, COVID 19 was a very unfortunate addition to this list, right? But at the same time, COVID 19 actually allowed us to see the impact that digitalization can play on the world. You compare COVID 19 in 2020, you have your iPads, you have your PLDs, you have your computers, right? You can stay at home, play game all day, nobody care. But you compare it to what, for example, what happened in SARS 2003. SARS 2003, the maximum you have is your Nokia flip phone. Do you think you could have survived lockdown with Nokia flip phone? I don't know. Okay, but this is what I mean by digitalization plays a major impact, and therefore I think it is a combination of technology and the social, economic, political, and all round impact of the COVID pandemic that has greatly changed the world and also the world of the future that will shape Gen Z as a generation. Alright? Gen Alpha, current. Okay, haven't end yet. It's 2023, this is up 2025. Gen Alpha, okay, by the way, your Sec 1 juniors are the first Gen Alpha batch to join secondary school so far. Okay, so they're already seen as individualistic. If you think millennials are bad, you think Gen Z are bad, wait till you see Gen Alpha. Okay, Gen Alpha has been brought up as individualistic. Why? Because their parents are millennials. These individualistic, independent people, right? Millennial parents are already preparing the Gen Alpha children to meet the demands of the world, right? And as a result, these two are most likely to come up. And again, they're going to be very highly dependent on digitalization. This is the generation where babies grow up with iPads, watching your Coco Melon or whatever, I don't know. Okay, but this is the generation that grew up with iPads from young, from childbirth. Okay, and they reject traditionalism. Okay, that is one thing that we've observed so far, that they really, really hate traditionalism. And eventually, Gen Alpha will become the most highly educated generation and will allow them to come up with the best new ideas. And for me, I think they will be shaped by the rise of AI, more economic crisis again, more pandemics, and more significantly, climate change. Climate change will be the defining factor for this generation. Why? If you didn't realize, the news this morning already stated that 2023 to 2027 will be the most it will be the hottest year period in record. Okay, and that will also bring about greater changes in terms of the weather patterns. Gen Alpha will be the generation that will have to execute a lot of the sustainability policies that we are suggesting today. Okay, and therefore that's why I say climate change will be a part of their life. If they and the next generations do not handle this properly, we're finished. Simple as that. Gen Beta, 2026 to 2039. These will likely be your children. Okay? Gen Alpha parents were millennials. Gen Beta parents is us, Gen Z. So I don't know. Obviously, there are no Gen Betas yet, right? But I just want you to think, how will you affect Gen Beta as a generation? How will your children be? How would it be different from us in Gen Z, right? Apart from name, all right? What will they likely be shaped by? Is it climate change? Is it nuclear war, for example? And what will be their greatest achievement as a generation? Now, I don't want to stress you out too much in terms of, oh, my children are like this or not. Okay? No. What I want you to think about is the future of society. This is the whole topic here, right? Society at large. Okay, so take some time to think about this, and this will allow you to have a better view of why certain things are being done right now to affect the future. Even though it's 2026 to 2039, which is very far away, but it needs to start now, right? Remember, parents affect their children. You will affect Gen Beta. Okay, so this is something to consider lah. Okay. Yeah, so this is just a representation of the possibilities, simply put. So what will happen when the youth take over? Now, eventually this topic always comes back to the youth. Now that youth are being taking over governments, okay, a lot of people worry that it will be a lot more cynical. Okay, this is going back to the idea of conflict between generation. Example, in China, 8 in 10 students say that they want to join the China Communist Party, but only 4% are motivated by a belief in the communist system. Again, I don't care whether communism is good or not, it's not a focus here. But why do you think, even though 8 in 10 students say they want to join, but only 4% truly believe in communism? Why such a big gap? Think about it. Why such a big gap? You want to pause the video? You can pause. The idea is that these people believe that government job or simply joining the party here will give them better prospects. This is the idea of pragmatism. pragmatism. We already talked about this many, many times in the past. And this is one of the reasons why people are so worried about youth taking over. Okay, cynicism. Some believe, however, it will be a better governed world, right? Better than previous generation. Some believe it will be a greener world where there's a greater focus on environment policies. And some believe that it will be socially liberal. Okay, again, rejecting traditionalisms. And COVID-19, like I said, played a major impact. This study done by Deloitte, okay, showed that the pandemic has brought about even stronger senses of individual responsibility. 3/4 of all the surveyors, all the people surveyed said the pandemic made them more sympathetic towards causes and actionable, which is important. Sympathetic, you understand the cause. Actionable, you actually go and affect the cause. Okay, so COVID-19, you see, brings about this particular large impact, and this will greatly impact how Gen Zs and future generations govern countries. Okay, again, this is another thinking question for you. Apart from age and name, are there any substantial differences between the beliefs and actions of millennials and Gen Zs? You realize that millennials and Gen Zs are actually quite similar, right? The things we believe in, the advocacy that we do. Perhaps we're different in age, but we are all there embracing change. That is what, actually, that's all what all generations are doing. We are embracing change. So my question to you is there really a generational gap? Or is this just another annoying human social construct? Something that only exists in our minds. Okay, so these are some conclusions, okay, about this particular idea. These stereotypes actually divide more. Okay, they are simply constructs of our brains. They don't actually exist. Okay, yeah. So just attitude differences, for example, you've been talking a lot about pregnancy and stuff, right? So, the parents insist that she marry the boyfriend, okay, and keep the baby. But she did not want to do so, and so she declined the proposal and had abortion. Okay, and her parents have yet to let the matter rest. So you see, there are differences, There are differences in terms of attitude, for example. Experiential differences, what they experience. So remember I said baby boomers, right? They are often trying not to let their children go through suffer the thing they do because they already suffer a lot. There's also the opposite effect, which is that people believe, okay, the parents believe that their children are weak, right? They came from privilege, and so they don't understand the value of hard work. I think some of you have heard this before. Insults, right? It's not just old people, all of you calling your parents, your teachers boomers, entitled, insults. Same thing. Okay, so we trade insults to them, they trade insults to us. That's the problem. You see, that's the problem here. So does it exist or not? Again, it's not a question that I can give you definitively, right? A social construct is difficult in that way, right? There is no right or wrong. So I'm just going to leave this quote, okay, for you, by George Orwell. Okay, each generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than one that went before it and wiser than the one that comes after it. It's the truth. For every single generation, this is the truth. Okay, so if you really want society to work, perhaps it is time to bridge this so-called gap. Whether or not it truly exists or not, we should extend the olive branch, right? Okay, so yeah, that is it for this particular lecture, right? I hope you have learned something, right? Again, there'll be another lecture at the end of this week, right? So do start revising, right? And I wish you all the best in your revision and your upcoming assessments, right? I'll see you guys in class.